So sometimes when we ask someone out or when we pursue a relationship with someone, it can feel a whole lot like what we just saw happen with Gru in this Despicable Me video. Am I right? Especially with the guys. Am I right? Can it feel like that sometimes? I see some heads shaking. Well, we just saw Gru demonstrate a classic, timeless, dark side to dating. And I'm willing to bet many of you guys have had an experience like that maybe once or twice. Isn't it ironic, though, how something that's supposed to bring you so much joy, like romance or a date with someone you like, can also have a dark side? That dark side can be fear or anxiety. Sometimes it's sweaty palms or cotton mouth or forgetting what you're going to say. Sometimes it's confusion. Sometimes it's just the worst thing of all, potential rejection. And honestly, there's an even far darker side to dating, and it's called the world's definition of dating and romantic relationships. Can we all do dun, dun, dun? Let's do that together. Dun, dun, dun. That's truly the dark side of dating, y'all, because it's all based on distortion and confusion, and those are not from Jesus. We know that because he's all about truth and light. No. This dark side that I'm talking about is designed to take you down spiritually. And it uses today's version of dating to do it. Guess what? We're all falling for it hook, line, and sinker. Yeah. And I know I did. See, I am not a stranger to the dark side of dating. I have personally grappled with it for over a decade, unfortunately. And as much as I hate to admit it, I've come to know it really well. Sadly, I see it worming its way into so many unsuspecting and innocent lives with students and with adults every day. Now, I'm going to pause here because I have to kind of give a little bit of a disclaimer before I get into the message as we start this new series. This lesson and this series may not be easy for some of y'all to hear. Just going to put that out there right now. And the reason I say that is because this lesson's going to teach us things that are directly countercultural to what we know and what the world says about relationships, dating relationships. And this includes even Christians, because unfortunately, a lot of Christians see some of the things that the world says dating is as reasonable and acceptable. They go along with it. They're, just like I said, hook, line, and sinker. So what I want to ask you guys, as I'm about to prepare, is I need to ask you guys to keep your hearts and your minds open to what God is going to do, what he's going to say and speak to you, because this is all biblical information that you're going to be getting, and it's going to require that you think about it. There's going to be some self-reflection you're going to need to do. Even if you're like, well, I'm not even dating yet, that's okay. Still going to have to look at yourself hard. You're still going to maybe have to make some difficult choices, maybe even some difficult changes. But maybe for some of y'all, it'll be refreshing because it might be like a confirmation that you're on the right track, that you're on the right page, and that will be a good thing. But all I do is I share it with you, and then the rest is for you to decide what you want to do with it, okay? So that's all there is to it. So now that I got that out of the way, let's start off with a basic question. I'm going to need y'all to be honest, okay? Don't be shy. We're family here, okay? I want to hear some real reasons why people date. I could sit here and throw up a slide and start telling you why we date, but I want to hear it from you. All right, so Matthew's going to share. Raya, do you have a mic that you can bring for Matthew? Matthew, stand up. Why do you date, or why don't you date?
People date because they want to brag that they have a girlfriend or a boyfriend.
Social status. That is good, Matthew. I didn't even have that on my list. Come on down and get some chocolate. Give Matthew a round of applause for his leadership. Thank you, Matthew. No, seriously, social status. Sometimes it's just like we want to fit in. We want to look like everyone else. Just grab something out of there. We can get you another one later. That's a good one. I see Jonathan in the back has his hand raised. Jonathan, why do you or don't you date?
Because you want to feel loved even though you have your family.
Very good. Sometimes you're craving or you're looking for affection or attention. Jonathan, come down, get some candy. Very good answer. Give him a round of applause. I like that. Who we got back there? Let's see. Is that Shelby? Oh, Shelby, stand up. Shelby, why would you date or don't you date?
I don't date because, like, a lot of people who do it, they end up, like, feeling super sad, even though right now it's kind of fake, but a lot of the time they just do it for attention, and then they want people to say, oh, they're so grown up, and they're special, but they really aren't, and they just end up sad.
Very good. They're doing it for attention. They're doing it for people to look at them. Shelby, you can come down and get some chocolate. Very good answer. I like that. All right, I'm looking. I see Gabriel's hand is up. Gabriel, stand up and tell us why you do or don't date.
I do it so I have someone to listen to me when I'm in a hard place.
Okay, so you're looking maybe for just somebody to bring you comfort sometimes, things like that. All right, come on down, get some chocolate. Good answer. All right, CJ, stand up. Tell us why you do or don't date.
Sometimes people don't date for the fear of rejection.
Wow, excellent answer. Come on down, CJ. They're taking that rejection extremely personal, and it's like wounding their identity, right? It's a good answer. Anyone else want to share why they do or don't date? Zoe, stand up. Tell. We got a mic for you.
Because people want to feel loved and like someone's there for them.
Okay, so like they have a constant source of a friend. Okay, well, that's a good answer. Come on down, get some candy. All right, we're going to take one more. Becca in the back. Can someone bring a mic over to Becca? Becca, stand up and tell us why you do or don't date.
Okay, so it's not for me personally, but I know a lot of people date because they put their identity in someone else, and then they get too attached and, like, literally can't leave.
Wow, very good, very good. Come on down and get some candy. You guys, these are, man, okay, I got to take one more. Lana, stand up. I see you. Sorry, Raya, I know I'm running you around. Lana, tell us why you do or don't date right now.
Some people date or don't date because they don't want to feel hurt when somebody finds somebody they else like.
So they're trying to be, like if someone asks them out, they're afraid to say no. They don't want to hurt their feelings, so they just go along with it. All right. They're not staying true to themselves. They're just worried about everybody else. Y'all, these are really good answers. Thank you. Give everyone a round of applause because that was really, really good. I love that. Maybe in the future we won't need chocolate to prompt so much participation. I love it though. But now that we've heard real reasons from you guys about why people do or don't date, I want to go into a biblical understanding of what dating should be about, why we should do it if we are. So let's start first with what I think is a little easier. What is dating not supposed to be if we're trying to honor God, all right? Keep in mind one thing. You can be flipping through your Bible. It's not going to mention dating. The Bible does not talk about dating, okay? I just want to be really clear. However, the Bible does have God's plan for male and female romantic relationships outlined in detail. It's in there. And we're going to base a lot of our information tonight off of that. So let's start. All right. Dating, when looked at from a biblical perspective, is not something that you do for recreational fun. All right. Do not get me wrong. Dating obviously can be a lot of fun. But that's not its purpose, guys. We don't date because we enjoy, like what some of y'all said, because we enjoy getting attention from someone else. We don't date because we're bored and it's just something to do. We don't date because we're like trying to fill up our schedule with social engagements. That's not why we do it. If you guys look at the screen, you can see some phrases that are common. You know, they're either said in real life and you've heard them from people, or you've seen them in movies and TV shows, and they give us the feeling that dating is all about fun, right? But don't let it fool you. Don't let it fool you for a second, because dating is not about recreation. It's not an activity that you just do for fun and for the heck of it, even though it can be absolutely amazing depending on who you go out with. All right, so another thing that dating is not is practice. Practice is for sports. Practice is for instruments. And practice is for cooking. But one thing that practice is not for is dating. Now, this doesn't mean if you've gone out with somebody and it doesn't work out and you all break up, that you can't take wisdom from that experience and apply it later in a future relationship. Obviously, you salvage what you can and you use that. It helps make the next one stronger. But that's not the point of dating. It's not like, oh, I need to try to get good at this. Let me go out with as many different people as I can until I'm ready to really settle down with the one in my life. Like, that's not what it's about. And unfortunately, I feel like, especially for a lot of guys, they fall for what culture says about this. Like, yeah, go out and sow your oats. Go out and have some fun. Go out and take out the pretty girls if you can get them, you know? That's what the world, I see heads bobbing over there. That's what the world tells men. So a lot of guys do that. And y'all know, everybody knows that one person at school, all right, that's like dating people, but they're always like, I'm not looking to settle down. I'm not looking for a relationship. It's like, bro, what are you doing then? Why are you going out with all these people? They're saying one thing and they're doing another, and it's contradicting. We all know that person. Now, how about this one? How many of you, this is my favorite, guys, because this is really, really relevant to you, to your generations. It's always been relevant, but it seems like now y'all have all the technology and tools to do it like perfect. How about this one? How many of you have asked somebody that you know, a friend, like if they're dating a particular person and this is their response? They're like, well, we're talking, and they have this little smile, and it's like you ask the friend, like, I see them like hanging out like every now and then, but like what's really going on? Are they together? Are they not together? What's going on with them? And the friend's like, oh, well, they're not official or anything, like they don't have a title yet, but they're talking. It's like we've developed code. I see smiles out there. Y'all know what I'm talking about. It's like we've developed code that talking is like they're interested in each other. They've laid claim on one another. Everyone else has to back off, but that's it. There's nothing else there. You guys know what I'm talking about. Let me tell you something, though. Talking, put with the air quotes, it's not dating. Textationships and situationships are not real relationships, guys. I see some smiles in the crowd. Y'all know. You've been in one. I see. They're not real relationships. They don't go anywhere. They're contrary to popular belief, because this is why y'all do it. I've asked, why do you guys do this talking thing? Well, because if I talk to this person, it's going to lead to a relationship. No, it does not always lead. Some of you know this from personal experience, and it hurts. Yep, I see heads bobbing. It does not always lead to a relationship. It means you could be talking to someone, and in your mind, it's going to lead to a relationship, and in the other person's mind, it's like, it ain't leading to a relationship. So one person can think one thing, and another person thinks something totally, totally different. You can't successfully read between the lines when you're just talking. So remember this, talk is cheap, okay? Now, another thing that you should never, ever, 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 everyone go ever with me, ever, never, ever consider a dating relationship is any kind of a friends with benefits arrangement. I know that for a lot of y'all, this is like common sense. You're like, yeah, I know. But guys, seriously, remember Satan? How he's like the father of lies and deception? There's gonna come a point, if it hasn't already, where he's gonna tempt you with this. And here's how it's gonna go. You're gonna be like, I am so over being single. And I really, really like her or him, okay, depending on who you are. And they're going to be like, let's hook up, and you're going to be like, for real? That's going to happen. And before you know it, you could find yourself, even though up here you know that's not what you should do, that's not a good relationship, you can find yourself in one of those. And let me tell you, Netflix and chill is not what God planned or had part of his plan for men and women, okay? No. All that requires is Netflix, somebody's account, a login, your bedroom, and another person. And honestly, that is so easy, a monkey could make that happen. And here's the thing, in case you need a reminder, we're not monkeys. We are human beings. God designed us to be highly complex, intricately emotional, with a high emotional intelligence. So Netflix and chill dumbs us down to animal level, okay? And whenever we behave as something that we're not, there's consequences, all right? So now, here's what I want you to think of, okay? Because you're like, some of you are still sitting here. I can see on your faces. You're like, Miss Anna, I'm never going to do a friends with benefits. I know that's not right. I'm not going to do it. All right. If you don't do it, somebody you know is going to do it. And here's what it looks like. You go to a party. One day you get invited to a party. I don't know, middle school, high school, whatever your parties. You go. Some guy and some girl are sitting there flirting nonstop. And you're just watching it like, okay. Before you know it, everyone's like, they're making out. They're making out somewhere. And you're like, okay. Well, after that party, the next party, they do the same thing. It's like they feel like they've got license to just put that on green light. Let's just repeat. Except this goes on and everyone's confused about like, well, are they together? Are they not together? Because they don't have a title. Well, guess what, guys? When you have that kind of an arrangement, the friends with benefits, there is absolutely no clarity, like none whatsoever. So guys sometimes think it's fun, and girls will sometimes think, oh, this is going to start a relationship, and in some cases it's the opposite. But I'll tell you, one thing it is not, a dating relationship or the start of a successful one. And finally, we find ourselves with the ever popular friend zone. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever put someone there or if you've ever been placed in the friend zone. But I'll tell you, let's get one thing straight. The friend zone is not the highway to the dating zone. Like, under no circumstances do you ever want to be in the friend zone. It is an undesirable place to be. And if you've never been there, then be grateful. I'm happy for you. But if you have, then you might empathize with this guy on the screen. Scooter Magruder. All right, so we're going to talk more about these things that I referenced later. So hopefully you guys have taken a couple of notes so we can go back to it. But these are things I mentioned that happen every day. You've either experienced them, you know someone who has, or at a minimum, you've seen it play out on TV and in movies, okay? So what I'm sharing with you is nothing earth-shattering that you shouldn't have heard of before. But the thing is, because they're so prevalent and they're everywhere, we just see them as the norm. And truthfully, they're not the norm. They're not God's norm. We need to know about these things, though, because we need to understand the world's definition and that its definition of dating is dangerous because it's casual and it's confusing and it can deeply hurt us as well as other people. So why on earth then, if we know that, why on earth would we want to put ourselves at risks to hurt ourselves or to hurt other people when we can date and relate in a different way that's going to protect us, that's going to honor ourselves and others in God? It's kind of a no-brainer when you guys think of it. So now that we know what dating is not, let's talk about what it is, and let's look at it in light of biblical standards, all right? So dating is one thing, guys. It's one thing, and one thing only. It has a practical purpose. Dating is designed to help evaluate whether a person would make a suitable marriage partner. So it has a single practical purpose. And I love what author Marshall Segal says. I'm going to read a quote to you, right? He says, While the great prize in marriage is Christ-centered intimacy, the great prize in dating is Christ-centered clarity. Intimacy is safest in the context of marriage, and marriage is safest in the context of clarity. If we want to have and enjoy Christ-centered intimacy with someone, we need to get married. And if we want to get married, we need to pursue clarity about whom to marry. He's basically saying the same thing. He's saying that dating is all about evaluation. It's an evaluation period. The jury is out. You're using it to see who is a spiritually safe and mature person who might want to be taking steps toward marriage with you one day. He goes on in the same book and he says this, and he's really honest. He says, my dating relationships were mainly a pursuit of intimacy with a girlfriend, not clarity about whether to marry her. In my best moments, I was pursuing clarity through intimacy. But in a lot of other moments, I just wanted intimacy at whatever cost. But even clarity through intimacy misses the point and gets it backward. I should have been pursuing clarity in dating and then intimacy in marriage. That simple equation would have saved me and the girls I dated all kinds of grief, heartache, and regret. Wisdom right there from that guy, hard-earned wisdom. When you think about it, guys, our ultimate purpose in life is to glorify God and to delight in him forever in a relationship with him. So every part of our life provides us with an opportunity to do that. Colossians 3:17 is where I actually get that concept from, in case anyone's wondering. It says this, whatever you do, whether in word or deed, do it all in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. So guys, basically, dating isn't really bad or good. It depends how you do it, all right? It's not right or wrong, but we can choose to use dating in a way that's going to magnify God's presence and his glory, or we can use it in a way that we reject his commands. The choice is ours. But before you can even make that choice, you have to know and be very well informed about what God's expectations for men and women are. How are we supposed to interact with each other? Unfortunately, you guys see this all the time with people who are dating that you know. They don't have a clue. They don't know what God's expectations really are. They might know like one thing that they think they know about what it means. But God is not a simple creation, right? God is very intricate. So we're gonna talk more about this because unfortunately Christians who are set apart to be holy are dating just like the world. They don't look any different. So they're not holy in their dating lives. And if they're single, they may not necessarily be looking holy either because maybe they're complaining about it all the time or they think something's wrong with them because they don't have a significant other. That's not glorifying God. So we're going to talk about what it means, all right? We're all clear on the purpose of dating. The next logical question, so what? It's like, so what? I know what dating's supposed to be. It's supposed to be to help evaluate who my future marriage partner might be. Great. This is a question you guys now in middle school and high school should be asking. You want to ask yourself, when are you really ready to date? And if you pause and you reconsider what I said the definition or the purpose of dating is, that it's a tool to help evaluate a potential marriage candidate, the real question you got to ask, like fine tune it, is who should really be dating? The correct answer is a spiritually mature person who is prepared for marriage and is okay with it happening within a year. That's who should be dating if we're glorifying God. Now, I want to get the cat out of the bag because there's an elephant in the room. Some of you guys are dating right now. You know people who are dating. I see some hands that went up. I want to just emphasize that tonight's message isn't to make anyone feel bad. Like, that's not what it's about. It's not to make anyone feel guilty like they're doing something they shouldn't. It's not to tell you what to do either, because you guys can make your own choices, right? God gives us free will, so you can do that. But it is intended to give you biblically sound information that you can use to help guide the decisions you make when it comes to who you date, when you date, how you follow Jesus in your dating life. And I just want to remind you guys again, we're talking about Jesus, the guy that we all believe, well, majority of us here, died on a cross for our individual sin, even though he did absolutely nothing to deserve that. The guy who was so mighty and great that he rose from the dead, had victory over the grave, seated at the right hand of the Father, he intercedes for us every day for all of our needs, big and small. That guy, why wouldn't we want to honor him? Why wouldn't we want to glorify him in all areas of our life? So here's what we have to understand, all right? Let's start getting strategic. Our God is a God of order. And I'm not saying that because it sounds good or it's like this practical theory I have on who God should be. It's a truth that we know because God tells us. He tells us this in his word. If you look at 1 Corinthians, there's at least 2 examples that will back this up. All right, I'm going to read from chapter 14, verse 33. It states, "For God is not a God of disorder, but of peace." And then a little further in 14, verse 40, we see that it says, "But all things must be done properly and in an orderly manner." So knowing these facts and knowing that dating is designed as a step that you're applying by people who are ready for marriage, we have to trust that our God knows what he's doing. That in life, there is an order to things. There's an order of who should be dating and when. Now, I want you guys to notice one thing. The definition of who should be dating does not have an age. There's not an age. And I'm going to explain these people in a minute to you because they're real people that I know. It doesn't include age, but it includes a reference, a physical description to spiritually mature. I can't look in this room at you guys and say who is ready to date. I can't. You need to know that for yourself. That's between you and God, and that's even before you and your partner. Like, that's a you and God thing. Because let's face it, back in our grandparents' day and beyond, people would get married right out of high school at 18 years old, and they were married until death do them part for years, for decades. This couple that you see on the screen, the Lundbergs, that's Megan and David, they were seniors in my very first youth group. And I remember looking at all the couples in my youth group back then that were dating, and those 2 stood out. And I'm going to tell you why. I knew in my spirit that they were going to get married one day. They weren't just the high school sweethearts that everyone was saying we're going to get married, or like, I love them so much, they're going to get, we're going to get married. They lived a holy life in their dating life that was blaringly obvious. They were 17 years old, all right? Homecoming dates, prom dates, graduated together. They played on different sports teams, but I think they both played tennis at the time. And they went off to college together. They went to FSU. But this couple would serve together. David would invite Megan, say, "Hey, I'm going to be serving at the homeless shelter this weekend. You want to come? Great, I'll pick you up." David, I witnessed him on multiple occasions exhorting Megan. Like some days Megan would come in, she'd just be having a bad day. She'd come into, the youth group was called Ignite. She'd come into Ignite, and she'd just be like, "I am so stupid. I forgot this, and I can't believe that I botched up my test." And David would go, "Are we speaking life, Megan?" 17 years old, y'all. This is what he says to his girlfriend. "Are we speaking life, Megan? You're smart. You just had a bad day on that test. You know what? Everyone misplaces this or that or whatever." He was lifting her up. He was being a spiritual leader. We're going to get into that more in another message. They used to pray together every day. And they had a couples devotional that they would call each other on the phones at night. And instead of their conversation being like, "So what are you doing? What are you doing? I really liked your hair today." It was like David was leading Megan in a devotional. And at the end, they would pray together. I knew. I said, this couple, God's got a call in their life. Well, guess what? They went through college, they graduated, they got engaged, they got married, and they just welcomed a baby girl into their life. And they have taken multiple mission trips in college together. They've been all over the globe serving in impoverished areas. They regularly attended church together. I got their permission. They were embarrassed, but they were like, Miss Anna, if it gives God glory, they still call me Miss Anna, by the way, even though they're 24 now, then do it. And I said, thank you. Because I want you guys to know, when I use that example in the message where I said in our grandparents' day, it's real easy to be like, yeah, times are different. Y'all, this is not that long ago. 2015 is when they graduated Eustis High School. So when I say this, you can live a godly dating life at your age, but it's going to require some intentionality and some tools that this series is going to talk about to help prepare you and arm you. It's up to you if you use it, but I promise you, if you do, God will bless you. So, all right, we talk about spiritual maturity. How do you know if you're spiritually mature? Like, seriously, what are the benchmarks? Luckily for us, there are a few criteria that we can ask ourselves when considering our level of spiritual maturity. They're all up here on the screen. I'm just going to kind of go through them with y'all real quick, all right, for emphasis. Do you have a mentor? If you don't have a mentor and you're here and you have a room full of leaders that are like, we'll be your mentor, then that's on you if you don't have a mentor. Having a mentor shows spiritual maturity. Why? Because it shows you want accountability. It shows you want someone to pray for you and to help you make godly decisions. And you're going to seek that out. Only a spiritual mature person will do that. Spiritually immature people are like, whatever. Or if they have a mentor, it's just because they want an older, cool friend, not because they're trying to grow. All right? You have a regular self-inventory with God. I've talked about that. What's a self-inventory? It's where you sit down and you get real with yourself, where you have your quiet time and you're like, Lord, I know I've thanked you for things. I know I've praised you. I prayed for other people for stuff. But I need to confess some things, and I don't even know half of what I need to confess. Will you show me? Am I growing in the fruit of the Spirit? Have I been kind? Have I been gentle? Have I been selfless? Where do I need to grow? If you're not doing that regularly, you're missing out on how you become more spiritually mature. All right? You have a healthy daily prayer life. Nobody needs to tell you to read the Bible. You just want to do it. You make time for it because you have a relationship with Jesus and it's important to you. Does it mean that every time you read the Bible, it's going to be so amazingly fun? If I'm being honest, no. Okay, and I'm going to be honest with you. Some days it's just hard, but it's important. So you make the time. Spiritually mature people will. Spiritually immature people need their mom, their dad, their older sister, their mentors to go, hey, let's read verse this, let's do this. If that's you, you have room to grow, all right? You bear the fruit of the Spirit. You respect all authority. You're careful how you treat your body, what you see, what you hear, what you're eating, what you're wearing. You walk in victory over sin. You don't walk around like you're a victim. You know you got the Spirit living in you. You know you can overcome all things. You know your true identity. You value it. And number one, God is a priority. Like nothing comes before him. This checklist, take a picture of it. I think I might have it in your notes because you need it. Because this is how you're going to decide, am I growing? So these are spiritually mature people. And you need to ask yourself, am I spiritually mature right now? And if you're dating, you really need to ask yourself that question. These are things I want you to ask in your quiet time with the Lord. All right? It's not between you and your partner. No, it's got to be between you and God. And he will show you the answers if you go to him with a humble and open heart. All right, so I know we're getting close to the end. I got to wrap this up. Thank you guys for tracking with me. Here's the thing. Some of you are sitting here going through this message and you're like, well, Miss Anna, I know that I should not be dating. I have no business. I'm not spiritually mature yet. I'm not there. What does this mean for me? It actually means a lot for you. It means you've got preparation to do. And it starts now. It's not too early to prepare. To start, it's really helpful to know what kind of things you need to seek God on. Because It's not like we all just grow up and instinctively know what we should be asking God when it comes to dating. I know I didn't. I didn't pray and ask God anything other than like, hey, will you one day send me a husband? Like that was it. It was so shallow and very selfish. But no one told me. I didn't know how to pray for another individual, for their heart. So here's the thing. You guys, like I said, you have mentors. You have people here that our purpose is to help train up the next generation. It's a biblical command. We are to do it. And when you're older, you're going to be doing it. You can even do it now with younger people. But you have a collective pool of wisdom to tap into. So tap into it, guys. And I want you guys to think like if you're evaluating your level of spiritual maturity, you got to say, all right, am I growing right now? Like right now. But that's not where you stop. Because you know what? It's so easy to be like, yeah, I'm growing. I think I'm growing. I started giving money to church. Like I take my allowance and I give to church. And like I've been a lot nicer to my brother. And yeah, I'm growing. You have to ask yourself specifically what ways, what areas are you growing? Like you have to have actual benchmarks, guys. Do you see how this is like deeper than what a lot of people make it out to be? And here's the thing, like you don't want to just ask yourself these things. You want to ask other people, ask your parents, ask your mentors, ask your other leaders, friends, because one of the best ways to know if you're growing is if other people see it and they'll be able to call it out and point it out to you. And if they can't see that growth, if they're like, man, you know, I love you to death, but you are the same kid as you were last year. Like I can't recall you last year being any different from you this year. Or maybe it is, yeah, there's a particular student at camp this year who was serving like nobody's business. And that was not who he was at the previous camp. He grew. You know, he was doing the work by seeking the Lord, and it was showing in his actions. So you got to ask specifically how. Here's the questions to ask. God, how is my heart changing? Do I have different desires? Because I'll tell you right now, one of the ways I knew I was growing in the very beginning, I used to curse like a sailor. And then when I knew Jesus, I started to notice, I'm not really cursing anymore. Like no one told me don't do it. The desires started to change. I didn't want to go out to nightclubs anymore. That's what I used to do for fun. And all of a sudden I had this like awful distaste for it. I was like, I do not want to be around places where people are just drinking and getting wasted and hooking up. Don't want to be there. Well, that didn't bother me before. But if you're growing, you're going to notice these things about yourself, whatever it is for you. So I want you to pay attention to those things. If you have a prayer journal, you can be logging these things, guys. It's important to know where you are. Equally important is, again, if people can see it in you. So a really good way to know that you're growing spiritually is that if they can list off several ways. So we also have to be truly humble. Ask ourselves, am I humble? Do I have a teachable spirit? If you're sitting here and you're rolling your eyes like, oh my gosh, Miss Anna, when are you going to be done? You might not have a teachable spirit. And that's important to have. Along with that question, we need to ask God if we're really respectful of all authorities. Because again, you might be like, well, I do. If somebody tells me to do something, if my teacher, my principal, my parents tell me to do it, I do it. But are you doing it with an attitude? Are you like, fine, Mom, I'll do the dishwasher. Okay, you're doing it, but what kind of attitude do you have? Or if your teacher's like, I want you to do this, go clean the chalkboard or whatever you guys have in your schools now. And you're like, yes, Mrs. So-and-so, and you get up there, but you're like, go clean the chalkboards, and you're making fun of her behind her back. Then are you really respecting authority? No. It's a heart thing, not just an action thing. And a spiritually mature person will respect even if they don't like the person, but they respect the role that they're in. We know that all authority is God appointed. That's your principal, that's your teachers, that's your youth leaders, that's your pastor, that's your parents, that's the president of the United States. Any authority, the role God allows or ordains, and we honor it because we honor him. Spiritually mature people do that. The other thing is, ask yourself, all right, how do I treat my body? Like, do I treat it as holy? What am I allowing into my body and into my mind? What do I wear? What am I saying? What am I speaking? the culture bombards us with this stuff, but we don't have to use that as an excuse. Well, I saw it on TV, I heard it on TV, and now that word's in my head, so I keep saying it. No, turn it off. If a show, foul language, it's off. And I'll tell you, I get frustrated because sometimes I'll watch like the first episode of something. I'm like, I love this show. And then I get to the second episode, they drop a GD word. I'm like, can't watch this show anymore because, Lord, they're dishonoring you. But it's a sacrifice you make, right? Because he is more important than your entertainment. And when it comes to like dating, guys, I know this is like an older reference, and it's older like not only from time, but from even maturity standpoint, but there are going to be shows or movies like 50 Shades of Grey that some people just think, oh, well, that's just entertainment. But it's sexually depraved. It's not just entertainment. If you watch those things, initially you might be like, oh, gosh. But the more you watch them, the more you're like, I'm used to it. You desensitize yourself to it. Then you're comfortable with it. God doesn't want us comfortable with that stuff. Don't let it enter your mind, your body, your heart, your soul. Don't go there. Spiritually mature people will walk away from that. Spiritually immature people will play around with fire. They'll entertain it. Remember, we're talking about spiritually immature and spiritually mature to know if we're ready for dating. Because dating, if we're going to do it, should be holy. Okay? Now, lastly, I just want you guys to evaluate yourself with God in your prayer time, because God does everything he does, all these steps, all the order, he does it for your success. He does it for your success. It's not to punish you and make it hard. Jeremiah 29:11, y'all know this from adventure camp. You know this from previous lessons. God is wanting to prosper us, not to harm us, to give us a hope and a future. It clearly states that. So God's ordering of a spiritually mature person who's ready to marry before dating is for your own success. It's not to frustrate you. Because you guys know, I had to offend anyone who's 12 years old in the room. But the world is going to tell you that you should date at 12. You can date, like that's totally normal. Very hard. Not saying it's impossible. Very hard to find a spiritually mature person at 12, okay? Again, you might be that rare anomaly, but this is the kind of confusion that's out there. This is why we see train wreck relationships, because people start to feel entitled to a rite of passage that they're not ready for, like dating or engagement. Yeah, we see that too in the 20s a lot, right? Everybody's getting engaged. I'm going to get engaged. It's time. Well, says who? You or God? I'm 41 and I'm not married, y'all, okay? It's okay to not be dating. You can make the decision and wait for God's timing, because only he knows why. We won't know that. It doesn't mean you're being punished. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It's just not your time. That's it. All right, so I got to wrap this up. We dived into the dark side of dating today, okay? We have a lot of stuff to discuss. We're going to discuss it in life groups. But next week, when we move on with part 2, we're going to talk more to the guys. But ladies, you need to hear what we say. We're going to talk about spiritual leadership, but very specifically. So let's close out in prayer, and I want you guys to bow with me now. Heavenly Father, Lord God, I thank you so much for just all the truth that you give to us through your word. And we thank you for being a God of order. Oh, how horrible it would be if you were not, if you were a God of disorder and confusion and chaos. Thank you, God, for being who you are, for giving us clear plans and understanding if we would only apply it. Help us to do that. Help us to take spiritual inventories. Help us to accurately evaluate if we're spiritually mature. Help us to decide if we're ready or not ready for things that should be used for holy purposes, which includes dating. Help us to just glorify you. Tonight we ask that you really guide us in our conversations with Life Group Time. Prompt our hearts to ask the hard questions, to not be embarrassed to do it. Prompt our hearts to share where we're frustrated. Help us to learn and to grow. We thank you for what you're going to do. We praise you. And it's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen. All right, can we give a round of applause for Miss Raya? She's going to come up and share some highlights.
Cool. All right. And now I want everybody to give a round of applause for Miss Anna for the wonderful message tonight. She did so good in preparing that. So we have 3 highlights tonight, and I know I'm your in-person version, so you don't get the cool, funky music in the background. But the first highlight is that next week we are going to be talking to the boys, but it is so important that the girls are here for this message. So invite your friends. Like we were talking about today, even if this message isn't for you, it could be for somebody that you know. So we're talking about spiritual leadership. Guys, I don't know if you've ever heard anybody say, you need to be the spiritual leader in a relationship, but you're going to be figuring out what that means. And girls, you need to be listening, because I wish I had a message like this to listen to and to know what a spiritual leader should look like. So that is the first highlight. The second is that the week after that, we will not be gathering for Waterstone Young because it's Thanksgiving. So we will not be gathering, but you guys can always see your friends, text your Waterstone Young friends and say, miss you today, XOXO, stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? So anyways, we will not be gathering the week after that. And the last one is make sure you guys are following us on social media. So social media is a really cool place where you guys, if you don't know people, you can go to the following list and you can find your friends that go to Waterstone Young, or you can share about gatherings, or we might have even posted a picture of you and you don't even know it. So follow us on social media at My Waterstone Young, and that is all. So you guys find your life group leaders and go ahead and go to small groups.